This is CBS.
Hello, I'm Larry Kane. Diane is off tonight. Coming up next on the Channel 10 News Update, Soviet leader Gorbachev arrives in Malta for the main event with George Bush tomorrow.
An elderly man killed in this Westchester house fire. I'm Luann Kahn. I'll have a live report coming up.
Also tonight, she was the star of the 1976 Olympics, and now Nadia Comaneci has fled Romania for freedom in America.
Under the sea.
And meet the stars of this season's finest productions in the movies. Sheila Allen Stevens looks at the best movies for your children. Plus, Al has Flyers and Sixers highlights and the preview of the war at the Meadowlands. Next on the Channel 10 News Update.
The 1990 Hyundai Sonata.
Uh-oh. Traffic.
It offers a 3-liter V6 engine, more powerful than a Honda Accord or Toyota Camry. Plus, more interior room. Yet it costs thousands less. Last year, 4 million Americans bought midsize cars. Maybe they should have waited a year.
Did you say something about traffic?
The new midsize Sonata V6 from Hyundai. We're making more sense than ever.
This is how some people see older citizens, but that's not how it is. You see, older people aren't helpless, but the truth is, sometimes they can use our help. Every time you buy a Pennsylvania lottery ticket, you help older Pennsylvanians with transportation, prescriptions, property tax and rent rebates, and more. The Pennsylvania Lottery stands behind our older citizens so they can stand on their own. For more benefits information, call your local area agency on aging.
Oh, I didn't see you there. I'm just opening my gifts a little early. So what? Look, my mom gave me cash again. Frankly, once this is into my wallet, it's gone. But look, my Aunt Bernice got me this American Express gift check. This is great because then when I go into the store and pick something out, it's like my Aunt Bernice actually got it for me. Now, this isn't something I'd talk to my mom about. Like she isn't going to see this.
Ask for the American Express gift check where you bank or at these locations.
Channel 10, Philadelphia. Larry Kane, Diane Allen, Herb Clark, and Al Meltzer. Now, Channel 10 News.
Good evening, everyone. There's been trouble in Westchester tonight. A house fire has left one elderly man dead and has caused a 2-block area to be roped off. There are reports of an explosion, but so far they are unconfirmed. Luann Kahn is standing by live at the scene. That's in New and Dean Streets in Westchester. Luann?
Larry, you can see the house is pretty well gutted. Firemen are just getting inside now to see how it started. They do not know the cause yet. Firemen say they got here very quickly, but not fast enough to save the life of the elderly man who is home alone tonight. It was about 8 o'clock when neighbors saw fire shooting out of the old 3-story home on Dean Street. Firemen were there in just minutes, but it took them almost 2 hours to get the fire under control.
Upon arrival, there was heavy fire from the front of the first floor of the building. It was coming out both windows and the door frame, shooting out, extending out, and overlapping the porch roof.
Homeowner, 75-year-old George Lilly, was found dead on the first floor. One neighbor said he heard Lilly's voice when he must have realized he was trapped in the house.
A gentleman next door apparently tried to kick the door in, but the policeman pulled him away from it. They wouldn't let him go in.
Did you hear an explosion?
The glass blew out, but, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't like a big, you know.
Did you see Mr. Lilly at all?
Some people said he came to the window right when the glass exploded.
We were sitting in our living room and I saw the flame come into this window. Evidently the curtains went up.
George Lilly was survived by his wife and his son. Neither one of them were in the house tonight. Again, firemen do not know what caused this fire. Larry, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Luann. Overseas, it comes at a time when the impossible suddenly becomes the possible. The leader of the world's 2 superpowers are in Malta tonight for what's being billed as the first post-Cold War summit. President Bush landed on Malta this morning. Mikhail Gorbachev arrived tonight. The Soviet national anthem was played as Mikhail Gorbachev arrived in the Mediterranean island of Malta. The Soviet president greeted by Maltese President Vincent Tabone. In a brief address, Gorbachev said he and President Bush have a chance to lay the groundwork for lasting peace in the world.
We will be speaking about peace. We will be speaking about how to move toward a better world, to move from a current stage in world development to a new world, to a better world for the peoples on all continents.
It rained on George Bush's arrival this morning in Malta. After the welcoming ceremonies, the president toured the Navy carrier USS Forrestal. Mr. Bush watched Navy pilots take off from the vessel and had lunch with the sailors, complete with hot sauce, perhaps as a symbol of the warming U.S.-Soviet relations. Later, he addressed the sailors and stressed his desire that Americans and Soviets stand side by side in the quest for world peace.
We want the Soviet Union to join us in building that kind of future. And that's why I'm meeting, starting tomorrow, with Chairman Gorbachev, for the times are on the side of peace.
Now, the talks between Bush and Gorbachev get underway in about 6 hours on the Soviet-guided missile cruiser Slava. Some of the meetings will be held on the American-guided missile cruiser, the USS Belknap, which, by the way, was repaired at the Philadelphia Navy Yard. For Mr. Gorbachev, tonight is the end of a long and eventful day that began with an historic meeting with Pope John Paul II. The talks were the first ever between the leaders of the communist world and the Catholic Church and lasted a lot longer than expected. Afterward, Gorbachev announced he has invited the Pope to visit the Soviet Union. He also vowed that religious freedom would become a reality inside the Soviet Union.
People of many religions live in the USSR, including Christians, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, and others. All of them have a right to satisfy their spiritual needs.
Before Gorbachev left for meetings with Italian officials in Milan, Pope John Paul exchanged gifts with the Soviet leader and his wife, Raisa. A tragedy in the Philippines tonight. Government fighter planes trying to squash a coup attempt by rebel forces accidentally fired on their own troops and civilians tonight. 6 people are known dead. 20 others were injured. This comes after 2 days of attacks and counterattacks between the military and the rebels. The rebels are trying to topple the government of Corazon Aquino. Their last stronghold has apparently faltered. They've lost their battle, and so far she has remained protected. Mrs. Aquino has remained protected in the presidential palace. The darling of the 1976 Olympics arrived in the U.S. tonight after her stunning defection from Romania on Tuesday. Nadia Comaneci. Defection from the hardline communist country is seen as an embarrassment to Romania's leader, Nicolae Ceausescu, who has said he will not follow the changes sweeping Eastern Europe. She was asked on her arrival in Vienna why she chose America.
Was it because of all the events that were happening, the dramatic events in Eastern Europe?
No, because I wanted to.
The gymnast is best remembered for earning a perfect score at the 1976 Olympics, a first in gymnastic competition. It's believed her final destination will be Indianapolis, which is home of the U.S. Gymnastics Federation. Alvin Ailey, the choreographer and dancer whose inventive style made his name synonymous with modern dance, died late today at the age of 58 in New York. Ailey, who died of a blood disorder, was known as a choreographer who created 70 ballets. But he's best known for bringing the Black American experience to modern dance. Earlier this year, his troupe performed in Philadelphia. Ailey himself had been battling the rare disease for nearly 2 years. He died around 5 tonight in a New York hospital. Dance master Alvin Ailey, dead at the age of 58. Tonight, Philadelphia homicide detectives are investigating the death of a 9-month-old baby. Little Tanisha Richardson died after suffering severe burns in her hands, legs, and thighs. Her mother, Michelle Richardson, called a rescue unit to the Mantua housing project today. Tanisha, who had been under the supervision of the Department of Human Services, was treated for burn injuries once before. Her brother was also hospitalized with a head injury. Now police are reopening the case of another one of Michelle Richardson's children.
We're talking to her mother, and we have a report that sometime last year there may have been another child, a 12-day-old child, that died. The homicide did not investigate that. Of course, we're trying to confirm if that is, in fact, true.
Tonight, Michelle Richardson has been released by police after being questioned. She has not been charged with any crime. World AIDS Day was observed today in a variety of ways around our country.
Parts of the epidemic are inadequate. Education...
In the nation's capital, dozens of protesters were arrested as they demonstrated in front of the White House. They accused President Bush of lacking leadership where AIDS is concerned. And near San Francisco, demonstrators picketed outside the offices of the borough's Welcome Company, manufacturers of the AIDS drug known as AZT. They accuse boroughs of profiting from the epidemic. Police scuffled with many of the protesters before arresting 16 of them. And in New York City, many works of art from subways to the city's most prestigious museums were out of sight, out in sight in what organizers called a day without art. Other galleries in the city that have lost scores of artists to the disease drape their buildings in black. And right here in the Delaware Valley today, World AIDS Day was marked with an exhibit tonight at the Painted Bride Art Center in Center City. Works by artists who have died from AIDS were on display, as well as works that serve to warn of the disease and its consequences. On Monday, a first grader from the Reading area will be honored in Washington by the Red Cross for her part in helping the California earthquake victims. Tonight, Bonnie Keller tells us about this little girl with a big heart who, despite her disability, has made a big difference.
7-year-old Danielle Iredale is bright, enthusiastic, and blind. She lost her sight at age 2 following chemotherapy and a bone transplant because of cancer. Now she's recovered, but being blind seems to have only strengthened her will to help others. The day after the earthquake hit San Francisco, Danielle marched into her school principal's office along with classmate Justin Lally and rallied the school to raise over $450 to help earthquake victims.
Her suggestion was, can we send teddy bears and food to California? And my response was, well, how about if I contact the Red Cross and we'll go from there?
What are you thinking about, going to Washington?
I can hardly wait. Just approaching that day makes me want to cry for joy.
Danielle was chosen from hundreds of other youngsters whose names were submitted by Red Cross chapters nationwide to be recognized for their efforts.
She was so excited about it. I mean, and she was so genuine, and she's such a delightful child that it just impressed us so much that we just submitted it to National, and they were just duly impressed.
Danielle's father knows his eldest of 3 is something special.
Sometimes they say that people who have lost a capacity enhance other capacities, so maybe that is the case. But it was just, you know, she's a very giving child.
On Monday, the Red Cross will announce what relief efforts have been accomplished by the American people. And Danielle Iredale will be seen on national satellite and tell all the United States why she did what she did.
We don't like to see people lose loved ones or their homes.
Danielle Iredale, one special little girl with the promise to grow into one outstanding woman. Bonnie Keller, Channel 10 News Update.
Still ahead on the Channel 10 News Update on this Friday night, the stunning scenery of Hawaii gets a molten addition. And some new additions to the silver screen. Sheila previews the holiday movies next.
Delaware Valley, Kerbeck celebrates their best year ever and goes all out to make this our biggest sale ever with their lowest prices all year on any new and pre-owned Cadillac in stock. No reasonable offer will be refused. Buy any new or pre-owned Cadillac this Friday and Saturday, and FC Kerbeck will fill your trunk full of toys. A $400 shopping spree at Toys R Us for you, plus $100 of toys donated to the charity of your choice. Plus, a finance representative will be on hand for instant credit approval at FC Kerbeck & Sons, Palmyra, New Jersey.
Experience the power of femininity, Oscar de la Renta. Experience it now with this elegant holiday gift of perfume and body powder, yours with any Oscar de la Renta purchase, available at Strawbridge and Clothier.